Want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. Hey everybody, it is the last day of the month, which means it is time for my July recap video. I'm going to give you a little bit of a life update, talk about my channel updates, go over channel and reading stats, and a recap of the books that I read, and then finally I'm going to go over all of the books that were sent to me over the past month. So this month has been a very busy one for me. So I took 3 vacations, kind of back to back to back, which really reduced my overall reading time. I still read a decent amount of books, but my overall pages was much less than I kind of normally want. But yeah, it's summer. It's what happens. So I went to this little ocean town called Bodega Bay in California with my parents and my wife and my kids. Stayed there for, I think, 4 nights, maybe 3 nights. Tons of fun. A little cold, but not that cold, but really nice. Loved it, and I can't wait to go back someday. Then I went camping with my daughter and my dad for a couple days. It was my daughter's first camping trip, so that was a ton of fun. And that was a little hot. So yeah, a big bouncing around here in the temperatures. And then the day after I got back from the camping trip, I went to Disneyland with my wife and the kids. We went for, I think, 5 nights. We went to Disneyland twice and then California Adventure once. So that was a blast. The kids love it. It's so fun. I like going to Disneyland and being able to like ride all the stuff you want to ride. But it's so much fun just watching kids just, have a blast and do stuff for the first time and meeting princesses and getting autographs. A ton of fun. So that's all on the good end. On the bad end, I found out that our cat, I want to say kitten, but he's probably like 9 months old now, has like some really, really horrible like mouth disease. And we had to get all of his teeth extracted, which is crazy. But he's doing great now, but cost like $4,000+ and that sucked. But yeah. Love the cat. He's like the best cat in the world. So if it was our other cat, I might have to think about that for a little bit. But yeah, this cat, great cat, and he's doing a lot better now. So onto the channel. So the Discord continues to absolutely explode. It grew over 300 people this past month from like 1372 to almost 1672. And you should join. The link is in the description. It's like the place to talk about adult fantasy books, and we would love to have you. On the Discord channel, we finished up a buddy read. If you don't know what that is, think of like an online book club for the Sword of Kagan. It was a ton of fun. The style of this is we read about 50 pages a day, and we have a daily discussion on the assigned chapters. So there's a room for it, and then I have a bunch of locked threads, and then every night at midnight I unlock the thread for the next day, and you know what chapters we're going to talk about. Jump in, read the chapters, and then jump in and talk about it. It's a ton of fun. Love the format where in most I feel like book clubs you read things like, maybe at the end of the book or maybe like a midway and end point, but we read, and talk about it all the time. So it's really fun to get other people's opinions, and it can kind of help inform yours a little bit. There were dozens of people involved, and this coming month, we're actually going to be doing 2 books. So on the Discord, I do a vote, and I say, what books do you guys want to do as the buddy read this coming month? And 2 of the books got a tie. So I'll announce what those 2 books are in my TBR video tomorrow and talk about when we're going to read them. But come join the Discord if you want to enjoy that sort of environment. I've been playing some video games over the past month. I always do. Not a ton of games, though. I just spent a lot of time on the games that I did play. Spent a lot of time with The Binding of Isaac. Haven't played that for like 5 or 6 years. Always fun to get back into that. Did another playthrough of Papers, Please, but I spent most of my time playing The Witcher 3. I think this is my 3rd time going through it. And I'll probably be doing it for all the next month, too, because that game's huge, and I have a problem with having to conclude every single quest in the game. Otherwise, I get kind of stressed out. So, this month, in the stats, I read 9 books, which totaled about 4,400 pages, a little bit less than the previous month, but still not quite what I'm looking for. I try to get to 50 to 60,000 pages a year, and if I did this every month, I would not quite get there. So this means I've read 64 books this year, and I'm on track to read 106, which is great. Kind of like to try to get to that 100 number if I can. I'm at a little over 34,000 pages read now, and I'm on track for 58,000. The average score for the books that I've read this year is now at 3.66. That keeps moving up a little bit. I started off kind of slow, but it's getting better. It's 0.03 up from last month, which is cool. In terms of like the stats on the channel, I got 105,000 views this past month, which is down 6,000 from the previous month, but still a ton. Love that. 13,000 hours watched, which is up from the last month by about 1,000, and 860 subs, which is up about 110 from last month. The number one video of the month was the best fantasy book each year since 1990, which got about 14,000 views, and it's growing. It's kind of in the algorithm right now, so who knows when it'll stop, but that video is doing great. The number two video was the top 10 fantasy books of all time, according to you. So I did a survey. I got your favorite top 100 fantasy books, and then I released 5 videos over the past several months, going through, in batches of 20, and that was the end of it. That video got about 10,000 views. And the number 3 video I did was actually a review video. And normally those don't do very good, but it was Umi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, and that got about 8,000 views. So let's go over the book recaps, starting with Umi. Umi and the Nightmare Painter is Secret Project number 3 by Brandon Sanderson. I predicted that I'd give it a 4 out of 5, and sadly I gave it a 2 out of 5, which gives it the award for the worst surprise of the month. And yeah, this just wasn't for me. I could tell that it was in general, like a well-made book, but I just didn't like it. For me, it's got this kind of like Japanese or Asian influence to it, but this almost like anime type style to it that I could never really connect with. It was mostly like a romance story. I mean, I know there's magic in it, and it had some big moments happen, but it really was at its core a romance story, and those just don't work well for me, nor do I think Sanderson writes great romance. And all of those things, I read it, I finished it, I didn't hate it like I do a lot of 1 out of 5, so ultimately gave it 2 out of 5. Then I read The Lies of Locke Lamora. This is book 1 in Gentlemen Bastards by Scott Lynch. I did not do a prediction for this, but I gave it a 5 out of 5. And I didn't because when the month started, I was almost done with it. But yeah, 5 out of 5. It's the second time I read this book, and I give it a 5 out of 5 both times. And I'm giving it the award for the best book of the month. I just love this thing. It's so good. I know we did a buddy read 2 months ago that kind of stretched into last month. And, in general, I think mostly people liked it. Some people didn't like it. For me, it's just like a perfect book. It's this wonderful heist story with amazing writing, kept you kind of on your toes the whole time trying to figure out what's going on. Nice little mystery to it, fun twists and turns, and I just love the characters, and the audiobook of this is to die for. Then I read The Drawing of the Three. This is book 2 in the Dark Tower series by Stephen King. I also didn't do a prediction because I was almost done with it when the month started, but I gave it a 2 out of 5. And I'm giving this the award for the worst book of the month. I just really disliked this book. It had some sections in it that I liked. There was probably 200 or so pages that I really was feeling, but it just kind of progressively got worse and worse for me. And it was just all a book that is not made for me at all. I don't like these, guessing games and weird writing and modern fantasy and, time travel and all these things kind of melted into one. And Stephen King, I'm not a big fan of the way he writes. I know people hate that. It's one of the few reviews I've ever done that actually got me negative subscribers, but, I'm still going to stay honest. But yeah, it's just, I don't even really get what people love out of this series. They must just love Stephen King and the way he writes, and I don't. So that's probably what it is. Then I read Blood of Elves. This is book 1 of The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. I predicted a 3 out of 5 on this, and I did ultimately give it a 3 out of 5. This is, I struggled with this one because I messed up and I skipped a book. which normally would be horrible, but I don't think it was a big deal in this one. So The Witcher, if you don't know, is split up into like short story collections and then like the actual novels. The first short story collection I read and liked, I give it a 4 out of 5. I accidentally skipped the second short story collection, and then this one is the first novel. I don't really think you have to read the short story collections to really understand it, especially if you're familiar with the games, and you kind of know the basic plot, know the basic characters. But yeah, I just didn't love the novel. It was so slow. And just not a lot happens. And the focus is getting towards things that I'm not really into. I mean, The Witcher for me is a monster hunting book, and there's none of that here. It's just turning into like a political, trying to be more epic fantasy, and it just doesn't work for me. Now I'm gonna read the next one, not soon, but eventually I'm gonna read the next one because I've heard people say it really picks up there. We'll see. I'm not holding out tons of hope, but yeah, we'll see. Then I read The Veiled Throne. This is book 3 of the Dandelion Dynasty by Ken Liu. I predicted a 5 out of 5, and I did give it a 5 out of 5. I love this book. I love this series. So far, out of 3 books in this series, I've given them all perfect 5 out of 5s. This is the worst one in the 3 that I've read, and I still thought it was incredible. That's how good the series is to me. The series turning out, like if I had to, gun to my head right now, I'd say the series is probably my 3rd favorite series of all time behind Malazan and The First Law. And that's a crazy statement because think of all the series that I love and have said nice things about, and this one's above that. I can't talk too much about what this one's about because there's so much that's happened before then, but the focus gets on some new characters, which always happens in this series, which I love. Its ending wasn't perfect because it's really you're supposed to think of books 3 and 4 as like one big book that the publisher split into 2. I get it. But yeah, lovely book, and I cannot recommend the Dandelion Dynasty enough. Then I finished up To Ride Hell's Chasm by Janny Wurts. I predicted a 4 out of 5, and I gave this a 4 out of 5. To Ride Hell's Chasm was the Patreon raffle pick. So every month I ask my patrons, what book do you want me to read? I spin a big wheel, and whatever gets selected I have to read, and this got it. And almost always the book that wins I end up liking, and that happened here. This is a standalone book. I normally don't love those, so this is ultimately one of the better standalones that I've ever read, and it just worked really well. I mean, it's a fun mystery story about a princess who is kidnapped or runs away, you don't really know which, right before her wedding. And the whole book is about trying to rescue this princess. Tons of little twists and turns, wonderful writing by Janny Wurts, and ultimately I'm really excited to read more Janny Wurts. Then I read Before They Are Hanged. This is book 2 of The First Law by Joe Abercrombie. I predicted a 5 out of 5. This is not a bold prediction because I've already read it, and I gave that one a 5 out of 5. And I ultimately gave it a 5 out of 5, and I liked it more than the first time I read it. I love The First Law so much. The things that I didn't like about it the first time got fixed on a reread because I know the way that this whole series kind of concludes. I was ready for them, so I got to appreciate more things about the story than I normally wouldn't before. It's just wonderful. And the audiobook narration is the greatest in all of fantasy. Stephen Pacey, I think is his name, is like a god of... He's like the best audiobook narrator, and he narrates these books, and he couldn't have done a better job. It's just so good. Then I read Waylander. This is book 3 of the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 saga by David Gemmell. I predicted I'd give it a 3 out of 5, and sadly I give it a 2.5 out of 5. And I'm not really going to probably read any more 𝐒𝐮𝐲 saga, because I've now read 3 books that feel really similar. Now, the cool thing about the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 saga, in theory, is that these stories are all loosely connected. They tell the story of the 𝐒𝐮𝐲 people, but they tell them, not in chronological order. You'll tell a story here, and then it'll fast forward like a couple hundred years, talk then, rewind a couple hundred years, and talk about then. And it's just this overall story of these people. And that's a cool concept. I've never read a story like that. But all these books felt really similar. I mean, you have this aging hero or heroes that have this big quest they have to accomplish. The women are written so atrociously. They're either like dumb or prostitutes or destitute. They're really poorly written. A lot of the characters are pretty two-dimensional. Now, the action sequences are amazing. and that's what rescued the book for me, but I just can't keep reading the same book over and over and over again. Then I ended up reading The Sword of Kagan by M.L. Wang. This was the buddy read for the previous month. I predicted a 4 out of 5, and I did give it a 4 out of 5. And yeah, I liked it a lot. It was fun. You can see my thoughts about it. It's the most recent review that I put up on this channel. It's a fun Asian-inspired book about a group, like these people that are this warrior type of people that are trying to stop this other country from invading them, and ultimately turns into a family drama, which was not super expected, but really welcomed. Fun stuff, kind of some amateurish aspects to the writing and the pacing to it, which would make sense. This is the author's first book. But yeah, ultimately good stuff, and I get why people like it. Then I read, but I'm not done with it, so I can't really talk too much about it, Empire in Black and Gold. This is book 1 in the Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Expect this review in the next day or two. And then I never got to Silverthorn, book 3 of the Riftwar Saga by Raymond D. Feist. I just couldn't keep up with the reading schedule with the vacations that I was on. When I go on vacations, I'm playing with my kids, and I don't really have time to read. And so, yeah, that's how it was. But yeah, hopefully I get back on track this next month. So before we conclude this video, let us go now onto the books that were sent to me. So every month, authors reach out to me, mostly indie authors, but some other ones as well. Will say, Matt, will you review our book? And I always say, no, I will not. I don't have time. I have a busy schedule. But if you send me a copy, I will show it off in my monthly video, which is now, and talk about it and read the back cover to everybody. I also have been doing a new thing where on my Patreon channel, I am offering up for anybody that wants them any of these books. I will pay for, you can have it. I'm not going to charge you. You pay me back the shipping, but I do the super cheap like media rate, so it's like almost nothing. But yeah, so if you're a patron and you see one of these that you want, let me know and I'll send it to you. The first book is The Leopard and the Red River. This is 𝐿 the Liar, book 1 by John Kevin McDonough. And I'm going to read some of the back cover to you. I'm not going to read it all on all these because sometimes they're long, but I'll give you a little flavor for it. Tenebrous Rask is the last hero and the son of the devil. Most say he is a liar. In a strange world full of strange souls, the stories of Tenebrous precede him wherever he goes. When drunk, he exaggerates the tales. When sober, he does what he must for money. He's killed many, but most deserve it. Tenebrous lingers reluctantly in his existence, yearning to be with his lost love. While searching, he is coerced into the impossible task. He must cross the vast northern desert to rescue an aged general's granddaughter, from the zealous followers of a man that claims to have returned from the dead. All right, number 2 is When They Whisper by M.B. Kruger. He sent me a really nice note here that I'm not going to read, but very cool of him to send me this nice note and what is this? A bookmark? What is it? I read Kindle now. I don't even know. So then back cover. We rule or exterminate by Emperor Arend. That's a quote. If Max could only accept the silver rule controlling everything about his life, from his work to his shower time, his life on the desert planet of Grandar 5 would be fine. But he keeps thinking something is missing from his comfortable controlling existence. He wants more, but he doesn't know what that is or how to get it. He plods along, but when his mentor is threatened with a legal sentence that will kill him, Max has to make a decision that will change his entire life. Next up, I got 3 hardbacks from the same series. I'll show them all off, but I'm going to read this first one. And this is the Ascendant series. Is it Ascendant? No. The series is Songs of Chaos, and this book is Ascendant. It's by Michael R. Miller. Holt Cook was never meant to be a dragon rider. He has always served the order hall of the crag dutifully, keeping their kitchen pots clean, until he discovers a dark secret. Dragons do not tolerate weakness among their kin, killing the young when they deem flawed. Moved by pity, Holt defies the order, rescues a doomed egg, and vows to protect the blind dragon within. But the scourge is rising. Undead hordes roam the land, spreading the blight and leaving destruction in their wake. The dragon riders are being slaughtered, and betrayal lurks in the shadows. Holt has one chance to survive. He must cultivate the mysterious power of his dragon's magical core, a unique energy which may tip the balance in the battles to come and prove to the world that a servant is worthy after all. So this is book 2 in the series, Unbound. It's a big chunker. All hardbacks, really nice. And book 3 with the wonderful cover is Defiant. Then I got Oceans of Sand by Jessica Flory. Jessica very kindly allowed me to do a giveaway of several of these books on my channel over the past month, and that was really nice. So, Nora's desert world has always been treacherous, with the roiling oceans of sand, giant scorpions, and brutal sandstorms. But now an unnatural famine plagues the desert nations and threatens to destroy all. Despite being the only one in her village without a sand gift, Nora is chosen with her best friend, Zadok, to sail across the oceans of sand in search of the legendary Moonstone, an artifact that could end the famine. As Nora and Zadok set off on their journey, secret romantic feelings each has suppressed for years rise to the surface. Love weakens sand gifts, and if they act on their feelings, Zadok's sand gift will disappear. Caught in the crossfire between forbidden feelings, an unforgiving desert, and starving nations willing to do anything to survive, Nora and Zadok discover the true meaning of sacrifice and the power that love has to heal the world. Then I got a publisher who sent me Martha Wells' book, The Witch King. Martha Wells is a well-known author who wrote Murderbot. And the back cover says, do I need to read a back cover? Is it on the inside cover? It is the inside cover. Let's read it. After being murdered, his consciousness dormant and unaware of the passing of time while confined in an elaborate water trap, Kai wakes to find a lesser mage attempting to harness Kai's magic to his own advantage. This was never going to go well. But why was Kai imprisoned in the first place? What has changed in the world since his assassination? And why does the Rising World Coalition appear to be growing in influence? Kai will need to pull his allies close and draw on all his pain magic if he has to answer even the least of these questions. He's not going to like the answers. And the final book, it's been a lot, thank you for bearing with me, is Beginning of Arrogance, book 1 of a Paladin's Journey. Paladins are nothing but trouble. Stories about paladins are everywhere. Noble warriors riding magic steeds into battle against terrible foes. Champions of their gods, heroes to everyone, except those who already have everything. Paladins are notorious for upsetting the balance of power to the detriment of any who don't worship their deity. So when Krell is called to service by the capricious god of the seas and skies, Reknor, those with wealth and power can't help but be concerned. Reknor hasn't called a paladin in years, and his nature is ever-changing and erratic. The fact that Krell is also an uneducated nobody with a stubborn streak as wide as the sea turns their concerns to fear, all of which matters less than the threat clawing its way from the waves, ready to turn the ocean red with spilled blood. All right, I'm done. Thank you so much for watching this. Tomorrow we're going to be doing the TBR video, which is a lot of fun because I do a TBR contest. I'd love you to watch, enter the contest, see if you can win, and as always, happy reading to you. Want to give another shout out to all of my patrons with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons. Anna G, Brian, CJ, Darren, Jonathan, My Book is Lit, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Orion, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Anna, Andra, Angelo, Ben, Blair, Brock, Evan, Harry B, Jamie, Jeff Pixler, Joe, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, Wacky, and Zion.